fellow makeup lovers, how are you guys doing? I am really pumped to be filming this video because I just have high hopes that it's going to be really helpful for anyone wanting to get into indie makeup and wanting to know what the best of the best indie eyeshadows are, where it's worth spending money more, where you can get a really great deal, the best mattes, best neutrals, best neons, best pastels, like all the questions I get all the time. What is the best indie eyeshadow formula? So what I did is I went through, I listed down a bunch of categories, and then I wrote down the first brand that really pops into my head for each. For a lot of them, I have multiple brands, but some of them only have one brand, and I'm really gonna just be able to go in depth on each thing and what I recommend. I guess I could say this is part of my beginner's guide to indie makeup series, so I'll add this to that playlist, and I'll link that playlist down below in case you're curious, because I've talked about red flags, misconceptions, the most highly recommended indie brands that I have just all around. Lots of great information for you in case you are new to the indie makeup world. And I also feel like this could potentially, fingers crossed, be a fun tag. I'm gonna have everything listed out with each category, and I'm gonna tag some people and hope that they do it. If no one does it, it's fine, but I just thought I might just like slap tag on the title because I think that it would be a fun video to recreate, but I'm biased because obviously I came up with the concept. So anyways, if you are new here, my name's Amy. Obviously, I do a ton of content about indie makeup. I feel like I've already mentioned it like 12 times in this video, and we're like 1 minute in. So feel free to subscribe if you want to see more of that on your subscription feed. And without any further ado, let's just jump right on in. Okay, so the very first question or category is best multi-chrome indie eyeshadows, and I have two answers here. The one that pops into my mind first is going to be the Clionadh stained glass jeweled multi-chromes. So I have my little palette here, and these two that I have are jeweled multi-chromes. I purchased some more on pre-order, but when I put them on my eyes, I was just amazed because they are super intense, super shifty, super sparkly. They're just like everything I could possibly want out of a multi-chrome. They're absolutely stunning. I love them, truly love them, and I can see the hype. I regret not trying them earlier because I was a little bit late to trying them. So I would say that they are my favorite multi-chrome formula. But coming in second place, I also wanted to mention, because it's a little bit more affordable, a little bit more accessible, that is going to be the Aurora Flare multi-chromes from Davina Cosmetics, which is all along this bottom row here. I really enjoy these. They're very shifty, very silky. They're a little bit less sparkly than the Clionadh, but they're also quite a bit less expensive as well, and they normally ship faster. They do tend to sell out fast, and they do occasionally do pre-orders, but when they do pre-orders, normally you can expect to have them in like a month, 2 months at the most, from what I've experienced with Davina in the past, whereas Clionadh, sometimes you make an order and you're like, okay, it's gonna be like 5 months before I get these shadows. And I don't have a full video on those, but I plan on filming that tomorrow actually, so hopefully it'll be up very soon. It might be up tomorrow for you as well. I'm trying to work out my timeline here. So the next category that I have here is the best iridescent multi-chromes, and what I mean by that would be really like white, very light multi-chromes that have different color shifts. And there's a ton of brands that have these. Davina has some, Clionadh, Shine by SD, Terra Moons. Those are the ones that's popping in my head right away. But I mean, I just have to give it to Terra Moons. I mean, you can see how many iridescent shadows I have from them. Not all of them are their iridescent chameleons, but they are just amazing. I have pretty decent dips in several of these. The shade Red Giant is one of my favorite shadows ever. I just absolutely love this formula from Terra Moons. And the reason I love it is because it's silky. It's not like super like textured to where it gets everywhere. You could use it on your cheekbones as a highlighter as well. And I feel like the shiftiness is just absolutely incredible. Like, just to me, they're the best. I really love them compared to everything that I've tried. I go back to them again and again, and I do have a full swatch party swatching all of my Terra Moon shadows, which I'll link down below in case you're curious to see them more in depth, but they are just amazing. I recommend them again and again and again. So number 3 would be which brand makes the best duochrome shadows, and this is hard because there's so many indie brands that are killing it in the duochrome market. So I have 3 different brands I decided to mention in this particular category. The first one is going to be Divina. If you can see, they're more like really sparkly, intense shadows. They have so many amazing duochromes. I have a full video doing like a swatch party of all their special shades in case you want to see them all, but I just feel like they have so many shades that are super shifty, and I really like using them with a glitter primer, but the way that they look all over the eyes, just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful duochromes if you like sparkly shadows. I also wanted to go ahead and mention the Bernovich Sparkle Shadows. Again, I have a full video swatching all of these out, but they are just so beautiful. These don't look as used because they're newer to my collection. I only got them a few months ago. But again, super sparkly, shifty duochromes, just so, so good. And I believe that these are all $6.50 each if I remember correctly, so pretty affordable. And even though they're shipping from Belarus, if you spend over $75, you get free shipping, and they do come pretty fast. So really, really love and recommend those as well. And if they're more accessible to you in Europe, I know that they're not part of the EU, but they are an option. And then the last brand that I really just had to recommend for duochromes is going to be the Adept Cosmetics ACI formula. So beautiful. My top recommendation would be the Plain Jane palette. I just love this. I have this on my eyes today. I mean, you can see, so, so pretty. I didn't use a glitter primer. I didn't use anything extra special to make this pop. They're just one of the best formulas I've ever tried. So amazing. I can't rave enough about these. I just think the ACI formula is amazing. Everything that they come out with in that formula you can expect me to buy because I'm all about it. And then here is the Ninhydrin palette, which is really beautiful. I don't love it as much as Plain Jane, but it has some great shades as well. And then they also have a few of the ACIs available as single shadows. Okay, so next would be Best Metallic Indie Eyeshadows. So this is going to be more like that super creamy, reflective look and not so much as like sparkly or shifty. So I had 2 brands that came into mind, and the first one is going to be Sydney Grace Cosmetics. So I do have a few of their palettes here. One is the Tiny Marvels palette, and their metallic shades like Fire Butts, BB, honestly, all the metallics in here, this one's a satin, but all the other ones are so good and so reflective. They just look like butter silk on your eyes. Like, they're so pretty. If you love just a good metallic, you don't want the extra sparkles, you don't care about the shift as much, these are really, really good. I also, all of their palettes. In the Enduring Love palette, the shade John, Albert, Devotion, Elizabeth, Deanna, like these are all super metallic, just incredible shades. So although I don't go for those kind of shades every single day, I do really recommend them. I think that they're the best of the best when it comes to a metallic formula. And then the other brand that I was thinking of, because I didn't necessarily mean for this to be like single shadows only, it was just indie brands, eyeshadows, and I thought I would throw in palettes when it felt right. I mentioned the Adept palettes, but for metallics, I also want to throw in Glam Light. I feel like they make an amazing metallic formula. So I have the Ice Cream palette here, and there's so many just really, really nice metallic pastels in here. They're just super soft, super creamy. I don't want to swatch everything right now. Part of me wants to, but also if I do this video, it will be forever long. We have a lot to get through, and I've swatched like almost everything I'm talking about in the past, so I will link as many related videos as I possibly can for you guys in case you want to hear more. But really, really love their metallic formula, especially in the Cake palette as well. Some of these do have shifts and sparkliness, but I feel like overall they're just really beautiful metallics, so I wanted to throw them in. Well, the 5th question is the best satin formula, and I feel like I'm not exactly qualified to speak on this because I'm just not a satin kind of girl. I don't use them very often, but I thought what I would throw in is my favorite satin formula, and if anyone decides to do this video, I would be so curious to hear what satin lovers love as satin formulas. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I really do like the Sydney Grace satin formula because for me, like this shade right here, Romeo, I've almost hit pan on. I really love the satin that's in the Tiny Marvels palette. I use them all the time. I think they make beautiful face highlights. I think they make beautiful inner corners. Sometimes I'll throw it on the inner corner, all over the lid, underneath the brow bone, on my face, and I'm completely happy with it. I feel like it's just such a good in-between formula for using on the eyes and face. So if I had to choose a satin formula, it would be from Sydney Grace. So next is going to be the best matte formula. If you are all about the mattes, if you want mattes that are creamy, blendable, pigmented, just buttery on your eyes, these are the mattes for you. I will say that personally, I prefer mattes that are a little bit more on the powdery side. I think that just works best for my eyes. I don't like super dry mattes. I don't like super like pressed pigment mattes. So I would just keep that in mind if you're looking for recommendations. The first brand I absolutely have to mention is going to be M Cosmetics. I do not currently have all of my M Cosmetics shadows together in one palette, but I do have a video I've done in the past talking about them, raving about them being the best matte formula, but I can show you some of them here. This palette is a mess and I accidentally broke it, but here's some of my M Cosmetics shadows. And I don't know if you can see like these shades here, but they just have an amazing matte formula. It's just incredibly pigmented. I mean, I know swatches aren't everything, but even when you swatch it out, it's just like completely smooth, no skipping, just pure pigment all the way through. It just looks really beautiful on the eyes, lasts really well for me throughout the day. Like, I just feel like they are some of the easiest matte shadows to blend. So definitely recommend M Cosmetics. They are a Canadian indie brand. And then I also have to go ahead and mention Tara Moon's Cosmetics. You're gonna hear me mention them a lot over the course of this video for good reason, because they just have amazing quality, but they have quite a lot of mattes now, kind of a mixture of neutrals, lots of colors, and overall their mattes are just so good. And I love their mattes even more because I tried their original formula and I did not love it, and when they came out with mattes again and they redid them, they were just so perfect. The mattes from the Halloween collection this last year aren't my absolute favorite because they're just a tiny bit more on the dry side, but they still work. However, I would say like 90% of their mattes that I've tried are just perfect. Okay, another brand that I'm mentioning again, and I'm not going to grab the palettes again, but I'm going to throw in Sydney Grace Cosmetics as well for really amazing mattes. And I would specifically say from their newer palettes, their newer shadows, because I've tried their mattes in the past and I've even went back and revisited them, and some of their older ones that I got in like 2018, 2019, they were good. They were a decent matte formula, but I feel like their last few releases, their Summer Days, the other summer palette they did, the Tiny Marvels, Enduring Love, like the mattes in all those palettes are just so easy to work with. I absolutely love them. So I thought I'd throw them in this category as well. Number 7 is the best pastel eyeshadows. So we'll just do it. We'll pull it back out. The Tara Moon's single shadows are amazing pastels. They just are so blendable. They work like a regular shadow. They're so bright. They're perfect. I mean, they are the best pastel single shadows I've tried. Sometimes pastels can be trickier to work with, but I don't find that to be the case with their pastels at all. And I have a palette that I wanted to go ahead and mention because we're talking about formulas, and I just need to throw out the Shroud Cosmetics Creepy Cute palette. The pastels in here are really amazing as well. I actually have this on my eyes today in combination with the Club Nebula palette from Kaleidos and the Adept Cosmetics Plain Jane. I did film a tutorial of this for my Patreon in case you're curious, which is always linked in my description box. But I just love these. I feel like they're not like super muted pastels. They're a little bit on the brighter side, but I think that also makes them pastels that'll work for a huge range of skin tones. The 8th question is the best neon eyeshadow formula from an indie brand, and this one's funny to me because almost all of the neons that I've tried have been terrible. I just feel like brands struggle with neons. They're a lot of times dry, chalky, they don't want to blend, like they're just a hot mess. But again, here I am singing Tara Moon's praises. The neon matte shadows that they have are so good. They're the best neon mattes available in my humble opinion. I like them because they work like regular shadows. You don't have to work extra. You don't have to use like a specific base. They're just that easy. So question number 9 is what brands formula I would recommend would be best for neutrals, best for neutral lovers. And I'm just gonna go ahead and say Cindy Grace Cosmetics. I feel like if you're a neutral lover, they are the indie brand for you. They're gonna cater to you more because a lot of indie brands are doing like super crazy out there color stories, and I love it, and they're just trying to do something really different versus mainstream brands which normally focus more on neutrals. I'm not saying it's 100% like all neutrals and all colors, but I feel like you're gonna get more colors from indie and more neutrals from mainstream majority of the time, but I feel like Cindy Grace kills it for their neutrals. I feel like for people who are just getting into indie makeup and they don't know where to start, Cindy Grace is a good place to start. I've always had really great customer service. I've never had any issues from them. I mean, I mentioned them in my most recommended video and whatnot, so I'm kind of just adding on to that. But for neutral palettes, I mean, I showed you guys the Tiny Marvels palette, which is a really beautiful mixture of neutral and color, but they also had the Summer Days palette, which is a really beautiful kind of like rosy, very true neutral palette, super, super beautiful as well. The Enduring Love palette, which is a little bit more cool tone, and they have Enduring Love and Summer Days available in a light and deep version. So if you're looking for neutrals, that's the brand I would recommend to start off with. And then question number 10 on the opposite end of the spectrum is if you're looking for the best colorful eyeshadows. I've got quite a few brands to throw in here. So some brands that I've already mentioned would be Glamlight. I also wanted to mention Kaleidos, which I just have the Club Nebula palette here beside me. And here's what this looks like. But I feel like overall, pretty much all of their color stories are very interesting, unique. Majority of them are very colorful. So I feel like you can get amazing, amazing colorful looks out of their products. I didn't really like think of them where it was like, oh, what's the best matte formula? What's the best duochrome formula? But at the same time, they do still have an amazing formula. Just because I didn't say a brand was the best of the best doesn't mean that they're not still really, really great. And if you're looking for colorful shadows, I would still 100% recommend Kaleidos. And then I also wanted to mention Menagerie Cosmetics because I feel like over all their palettes, they have done a lot of really cute, interesting color stories. So we've got Flight Club here, which is monochromatic, so it doesn't quite speak to my point as much, but like the Feral palette, which is a super pretty color story. I don't know where I put the Whale Song. We've got Pastel Pup here, and they also have a great like palette builder using single shadows on their website, so you can like make a palette yourself and get to see what all the colors look like beforehand and everything, so that's nice. On that note, I also wanted to mention Lethal, which I don't have all of my colors from them together here. In fact, I'm missing a lot of my really colorful shades. If you're looking for another indie brand that has a huge variety of colorful shadows, they especially have a lot of really beautiful colorful mattes I would recommend. I would say Lethal. Again, I have a full video swatching all of my shadows from them. I can link down below because I'm missing a lot of pinks and greens in this palette right now. It looks a lot more muted than it normally does. So just thinking through doing best neutrals and then best colors, I thought another category I could throw in was the best like grungy kind of colors. I don't even know if that makes sense, but it made sense to me. So for that, I really just wanted to mention Divina again. Let me just pull my palette out so you can see my example. I feel like they have a lot of like kind of more murky shades. Just if you look between like their greens, some of the undertones of their purples, like some of the deeper shades, I feel like they have more of like a grungy color story overall. And of course, this is just the shadows that I own. It's not their whole entire collection because they have even more grungy shades that I don't have. But I just feel like especially like the green and like warm area here is like a grungy dream. So yeah, I just thought I would throw that in. Okay, only 2 more to go. Number 12 is going to be the best bang for your buck indie eyeshadow formula, and I had 2 answers for that. So one is going to be the Bernovitch shadows that I mentioned before. Again, I just feel like these are so special. Even though $6 a pop is not like the most affordable ever, especially if you're getting a few of them, I feel like compared to other things on the market where you would get a similar look, these are quite affordable. And I was trying to think if there was anyone else who really stuck out in my mind as being a really affordable indie brand. And honestly, there's not that much. I feel like most indie brands are more on the expensive side. Of course, it depends on each person, because like I could look at something that's $50 and think that's affordable, and someone else could look at something that's $50 and think that's expensive, and someone else could look at it and think that that's cheap. So it literally always just depends on who's looking at it. Just keeping all that in mind, I thought I would also say Juvia's Place. Although I haven't been in love with their recent releases and I haven't purchased as much from them recently, if you're looking for an indie brand and they have a pretty decent metallic formula, they have a pretty easy to use matte formula, they have interesting color stories, so I would say Juvia's Place as well. Even though they discontinued my favorite palettes, the Tribe and the Douce palette, but it's fine. And then lastly, I also wanted to do number 13 as best despite the price, which I have two answers, and the first is going to be the Terra Moon's Iridescent Chameleons that I mentioned. Not all of these are Iridescent Chameleons, but the ones that are like $17 each, which I know is a lot for a single shadow, but like I would do it over and over again. They're my absolute favorite. No regrets about that purchase at all. I bought the first set of 8 and then they sent me the extension, just to be clear about what was gifted, but the first original ones are my absolute favorite. And I mean, I'm so happy that I bought them. So I would say that they are one of the best indie formulas that I've tried, despite the price, because that initial order was a little expensive. I was like, am I stupid? Like, am I gonna like these? And I love them. Then the other one you might be able to guess, but I'm also going to say the Plain Jane palette from Adept Cosmetics. I absolutely love this. I feel like it is just jam-packed with special shades. I believe that this palette is $62, so it is definitely a pretty penny. I did not purchase this because I was planning to purchase it. I asked them when it was coming back in stock and they offered to send it to me, but I would have happily spent the $62 for it because I was just so curious to try it out. And if I like lost it or something like that, I would happily purchase it myself to have it again in my collection. And I feel like, to me, it is worth the price. I just really, really love it. I feel like it is special compared to other palettes that are available. And just the fact that I've worn these all day without eye primer, without glitter primer. I've worked out with them and they just look beautiful. They last beautifully. Like, oh, the formula is so good. So I had to throw these in, even though they're a little more expensive. Best despite the price. So that is everything I wanted to talk about today. I know I kind of breezed through some things because I didn't want to make this video forever long, but I hope it was helpful for you. If anybody at all decides to do this video and wants to share your answers of the best indie formulas you've tried, even if you don't have an answer for everything and you want to make it shorter, that would be cool. Please feel free to send it to me on Instagram, Twitter, whatever. I'm here. I am able to be reached. I would love to see, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.